Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Commissioners Workshop, Loma Country Township Board of Commissioners Workshop. Please join me for the pledge of the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bruce, if I may, I see some gentlemen that were here on Thursday regarding the cricket field. Was there anything new? I don't want you guys to have to wait throughout. We have a big agenda. There's nothing new to add from what we said on Thursday. I think we said that we were going to have you stay in communication with the Parks and Rec group. And if you can just continue to do that, but if there's something else you'd like to say, we're more than happy to listen to what you have to say for a couple minutes. Is that all right, Bruce?
Thank you for giving us time to speak about that. I did reply to Bruce and there is a response. So Commissioner Higgins very clearly communicated to us the other day that he wants to promote the game of cricket in the community.
Right.
And we want to discuss further in that. And we felt the workshop meeting will be appropriate place to discuss more about that, about some of the miscommunications which were had in the past and some of the concerns which township staff brought up. We wanted to clarify some of those concerns because we did mitigate those concerns from our side. And we also want to communicate that this is the only cricket ground we have in the whole area. And we are willing to work with the township on all terms to address their concerns. If you feel that this is too much for a neighborhood park, yes, let's work together and find other alternative grounds.
Right.
But please do not take this ground away. Let's minimize the time use. We were using it from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. all weekends. Let's work together and see if we can minimize the time, but please do not take this ground away from us.
Again, I don't want to speak for Commissioner Higgins, who actually is remote tonight, but I do believe he said that we would look for and will look for another location that's better suited for you as the cricket desire grows. We certainly want to be able to be a partner with that. So that's not an issue from our point of view. Again, the concern was the size and the volume for that specific location. So we're not saying we don't want cricket in the township. We just need to find another location. So again, if you could just bear with us and continue to communicate with Bruce and the Parks and Recs team to make sure that, you know, we stay in communication and just for future reference, if you, again, communication issue, when you want to be here for the workshop, you do have to let us know so we can get you on the agenda. So
I'm
maybe
sorry.
that's another misunderstanding there, but certainly, again, you guys are welcome to stay and throughout this, I just don't want to leave you sitting there and not be able to tell you something different. But again, as what Commissioner President Higgins stated, is that we are going to be working with you and our Parks and Recs team to look for a better location that's more suitable.
Thank you. And I was actually under the impression that we were actually part of the agenda today as per last email communication.
Yeah, and I apologize for that side of it. For workshop, when we talk about workshop topics or things that we bring back in front of the board, we try as a staff to make sure we have background and to have communications. Then we place things. We usually need a little more time after our last email because these agendas go out for the public fairly early. So like last week, our agenda for this evening was already out last Wednesday night for Thursday. So I apologize for that side of it. The gentleman has just for the board, you know, has provided, you know, a response back to our concerns that we had talked about. So we look forward, and I look forward to sitting down with our rec team too, and meeting with that group and, you know, hearing concerns and things of that nature and, you know, working through what we have here. So for me, I'd like to make sure we have those conversations, whether it be in an evening or at our Parks and Rec staff. We'll make sure we reach out and, you know, and then I'll get a report back to the board and see where we are for our policy decision or things that they may have that then we can work through.
Awesome.
All
So
right.
I'll look forward to the next communication.
Thank you.
Yep, like I said, just stay in communication and be a little, if you don't mind, if you could just be a little patient, because again, there's a lot of stuff we need to figure out to
Understand.
accommodate you guys, so.
Appreciate it. Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Yep, thank you. Okay, Mr. Zates, why don't you come on up? Mr. Irvin, will you, I'm sorry, I apologize, Vince.
That's okay.
Go ahead and take it away.
Mr. Zay, that's fine right there. And if you call me Rick. All right, Rick. And if you wouldn't mind just pulling the mic closer to you so we can hear you. Thank you. All right, so first of all, I just want to thank you for your interest in the zoning hearing board and your interest in volunteering for Lower Country Township, your community. So the way we're going to go through this tonight is I'm going to ask a series of questions. After we get through that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Irvin. He's the chairman of the zoning hearing board. And then after Mr. Irvin's done, I'll open it up to the board to see if anybody has any questions. Okay?
Certainly.
All right. Okay, so the first question we have for you, Rick, is what's the purpose of zoning ordinances and also the purpose of the MPC?
Zoning ordinances, I guess, for me is it's control of land uses within a municipality. It's a way for us to create vision and plan for the future, especially within Lower Macungie. Without actually knowing the zoning code as it is in Lower Macungie, it helps control population growth, industrial growth, and the resources that are needed to manage that growth. The MPC is municipalities planning code, I believe. It's out by the state, and it gives you the ability as a municipality to work within constraints that we have as either the county level, borough level, or township level to get our zoning ordinances together so we can actually plan better.
Great. Yeah, the MPC is the guiding overall document for the state. So, all right. So, were you aware that the zoning hearing board is a quasi judicial body in matters related to a zoning appeal? And so, what does that mean to you?
It means that we have kind of the last say on zoning issues. I mean, again, they can take it farther than that. Some developers have in the past, but we are the last answer for them in terms of appeals.
Okay. Yeah. So, just so you know, that is a hearing, like a court hearing. So, why are you interested in volunteering for specifically the zoning hearing board?
Well, okay, so a really quick update. In 2004, I was going to be on the zoning hearing board in Emmaus. Made a decision to move to Lower Macungie. So they wouldn't let me join the zoning hearing board at that point. I just enjoy watching how we plan and making things work for the future. That's all.
Great. So what do you have to offer to help the township in administering the zoning ordinance? And do you possess any unique training or anything that would be useful?
Unique training, I don't think so. Okay. I did spend 4 years in Borough Council in Emmaus, and that was a lot of training and unique in a lot of ways. Just prepares you for, first of all, knowing the zoning ordinance. We did redo the zoning ordinances for Emmaus the 4 years I was on Borough Council. Understanding that process, I think, is really important. It's time consuming. It's utterly boring, but it needs to be done and gives us the control we need for our municipality.
So in your mind, an applicant that comes before the zoning hearing board, what do they have to show in order for you to, give the relief or a variance?
You gotta show hardship.
And do you think it should be significant or, what level of hardship?
I think it depends on the circumstances. I don't think that's an easy answer for anything. It depends on what they're coming in front of us for. And one of the things that if they bought the property 6 months ago and all of a sudden they went a variance, you bought it with that in mind, probably a little bit different answer than if you bought it 20 years ago and zoning codes have changed and you're looking for a variance for your specific purpose. I think it all depends on the unique situation.
Obviously, I'm sure you know that, it's the fourth Tuesday of every month, and we just want to make sure that you're willing to attend all those meetings regularly.
Yeah, I knew that when I signed up.
Okay. Sometimes there's a case where we may have to convene a special meeting. Would you have any problems if that would happen on another date that's not the regularly scheduled meeting?
It shouldn't be as long as I don't have anything pressing at that time.
Do you have any potential conflicts that may require you to recuse yourself from any hearings? Like with developers or citizens groups or any kind of local attorneys or anything like that?
I don't. I was thinking about, any of those on the way over. And I don't, everybody knows who was a developer is either passed away or, sold their business. Attorneys are all have either become judges or they're retired. There's,
Okay, so nothing you could think.
I don't belong to any community groups that are radical in any way.
All right. I only have one question before I turn it over to Mr. Irvin, but you had already said about you would serve on Borough Council in Emmaus. Any other volunteer capacities you served in any other municipality or, in your personal side?
I've been on so I resigned from the Emmaus Main Street program after 25 years, looking for something different in our community. Okay. I've been a Rotarian for 15 years. I was a Kiwanian before that for a whole bit different issues, and lifetime lioness for the Lions Club. But no, I just enjoy volunteering, giving back to the community.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Charles?
Good, thank you. The only question I have is, will you be willing to follow the Lower McCountry Code and apply that code to the issue that comes before the zoning hearing board?
Yes.
Only question I have. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. I'll open it up to any members of the board have any questions?
Okay, now, there's also the planning commission,
Yes, sir.
and the planning commission is actually the board that goes through and does redrafting of the zoning ordinance. And so, it's both, so the planning commission and the commissioners pass the zoning ordinances, and then it's the zoning hearing board that interprets what is there. But it is the zoning hearing board that you would want to be on.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Richard, thank you.
Absolutely. Good to see you again, by the way.
Good to see you too. You guys have a great evening
Thanks, Rick.
and a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks for applying. On.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
I guess we can move, Brian, is this you, the draft resolution for the plan for Spring Creek Estates? Is that?
I was going to
you-
start. Yeah, I'll start
I
off on it.
apologize.
No, that's okay. No problem.
Yeah, I'm still learning.
Me too.
Yeah.
Rich, we're gonna,
Just to be honest.
we're gonna keep you on your toes.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay, yeah, what I'll do is I'll just give a little brief introduction. And then Brian does have just a couple comments, but that's all. So the next item on the agenda is is the reviewing of the draft resolution and plan for Spring Creek Estates 2022 modification plan. This is a modification to a plan that was previously approved. It went to the Planning Commission in September and got recommended approval to come to the Board of Commissioners. So the applicant is modifying one lot. This was originally a 2-lot subdivision that are not conjoining. The original plan showed 2 townhomes, and at the time when the applicant wanted to make a modification, they had already been through the land development process and were getting on the agenda to get approval, and was urged by staff to come through with a modification. So that's where we are tonight. So again, Planning Commission has recommended it with as long as they comply with the review letters from the zoning officer and also the township engineer. Again, the only thing that we're asking before it comes back to the board for an approval at a BOC meeting is that they revise the plan to take into account for all the comments. So that is a clean plan. But tonight, just the plan that we have recommended here by the Planning Commission. So, Brian, if you want to make any comments to that or add anything, please feel free.
No, it's unusual in that it's relatively straightforward, but one of the things that was not as detailed as it should have been in the plan is how they're addressing stormwater management, and kind of need to know more of that before we're comfortable moving it forward. It should be easily addressed, but it really wasn't. So that's like our primary concern. And kind of why I wanted to make sure that we had I'll say a more complete plan prior to actually suggesting that it should be on a board agenda for action.
I don't have anything further unless anybody has any questions.
I presume you handle the next one?
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yep. I
Uh,
think with the,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Bruce is going
Mo-
to start the, oh, sorry.
Maury's gonna-
Okay, so I brought it up a few times that the ITE manual apparently views townhouses differently than it does single family and twins. And I didn't understand completely why that. And I believe in the past, when there have been townhouse developments, that we have gone ahead and used the normal trip generation thing of like one trip per day, trip. But in this case, they're using for, I think it's all of the townhouses, both in this one and the other one, that it's only 9 trips per day.
Yeah, and it's, I should let you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of the way the ITE manual sets up trips per day is based on the data that they've collected for different land uses. And it's more, it's a function of the data they've collected as opposed to what I would consider to be a kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word without being offensive to the people that put the design manuals together, but you look at a single family house, they might have 3 cars in the driveway. You look at a townhouse, they may have 3 cars in the driveway. But the way the ITE manual sets things up, and let me know if I'm getting off track, they set it up based on thousands and thousands of data points that they've collected nationwide and have determined that there are certain land use categories that they use. And then how they are applied determine that you're going to have X number of trips per day. So for the way they set it up, you have single family and then multiple variations of multifamily housing. And in this for this particular development, the concern that when this was first raised was, all right, is it apartments, is it townhouses, is it condos? But the way the land use codes in the ITE manual are set up, they specifically lump them all together the same. It says, so for instance, low-rise multifamily housing includes apartments, townhouses, and condos located within the same building with at least 3 other dwelling units that have 1 or 2 levels. And it goes on to say that in prior editions of the trip generation manual, low-rise multifamily housing sites were further divided into rental and condominium categories. An investigation of vehicle trip data found no clear differences in trip-making patterns between the rental and condominium sites within the ITE database. So what effectively what they've determined is whether it's an apartment, a townhouse, or a condo, the trip generation numbers that they've compiled, which are used industry-wide, it kind of doesn't matter, even though you may have anomalies within that. You may have a guy that has a condo and has got 4 cars. But you may also have a single family house that's got 1 person and 1 car. So my understanding in discussing this with Andy Heinrich, the traffic engineer that we use, you know, it's kind of these are percentages, and it's basically based on a boatload of data that's been created to determine what's the trips per day are, and it's further broken down. And I don't want to start getting off into really super specific traffic engineer stuff and misstate something. But suffice to say that the way the ITE manual is set up, it doesn't matter whether it's a townhouse or a condo or an apartment. It is what it is, and they've broken it out in such a way that the traffic engineer that we rely on is comfortable with what they've provided. So as we started mentioning, start talking about a little bit before the meeting, I want to make sure that I address your concern. But it's one of those, it's a fairly specific method, so to speak, that's kind of been set up by the traffic engineers. And rather than just tell you what's in the manual and that's what we use, I mean, that's really my answer, but I'm not sure if I'm misunderstanding the concern. Is that better?
That's fine. It does have ramifications in the future. We would trip generation and townhouses in general.
Right.
And just wanted to make sure that we were clear on it. So I guess, so I was questioning the phraseology of item 11 in the resolution conditions, and it's nebulous enough to let it go.
Okay, and like I said, I feel comfortable that the traffic engineer that we pull in to help us with traffic stuff is extremely experienced. And the way the resolution is worded, based on the revised total peak PM trips for the development, that's relative to the traffic impact fee, will be submitted to the township traffic engineer for review and approval prior to modifying the plan, prior to recording of the plan. So the way this is phrased, it allows for some wiggle room and additional conversation by all of us if we feel it's needed.
Yeah.
But in order to try to put your mind at ease, it's not always as straightforward as it would appear that it should be, I guess is the best way to say it. But I can tell you that the traffic engineer that we use is extremely experienced, and I've had multiple conversations with him since being your engineer, and I'm confident that he's got his hand on things in the right way, and we're getting appropriate advice.
Okay, so I surrender.
Anybody else have any questions regarding this topic? Okay, Mr. Vital.
All right, just a little intro for number 4, and then Mark and Vince are gonna jump in specifically. What we wanted to do, the township has had, well, we have potentially some projects that may have the ability to request a waiver of the land development process through the SAUDO. So internally, how we're handling that in our internal process and policy, we are taking these submissions. We are reviewing as a staff, thoroughly reviewing as a staff, what the project is, what its scope is, does it meet the parameters of having a potential waiver request come before the board. We're going to evaluate those and then bring them to the board at a meeting and request or support waivers of the full land development process. So one of these projects they're going to talk about is something that we have. Sometimes we have another request potentially for a project that's not even in the township. They're asking for a waiver from going through our process as well. And we're wanting to make sure that the board is okay with how we're handling things internally. If it's the will of the board to engage and take these projects through the entire land development process, we want to make sure that that's what we're, imparting as a staff to applicants, as well as making sure we're on the same page with you gentlemen. So wanted to give a little background. You'll hear specifically about this project, and why we're looking forward to supporting a waiver in front of the board that you may see at a future meeting. So that's the intro. I'll let these guys kind of delve into details.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have a question first, or do you want me to explain what's going on here? Okay, so this one on number 4 on the agenda, 5098 Reservoir Hill Road, is a request from the PPL utility company to change their lot lines. It's 2 properties that are owned both by PPL, or Met Ed, I think, owns one of them. PPL owns the other. They just want to adjust the lot lines. So it started out as it came in as a request that the township sign off on that plan without having to go through land development. So I spoke to the attorneys for PPL, which is Mr. Diamore's here. It's from his office. They provided me some case law on why they should be exempt as a public utility from the process. After I reviewed that, I had some further discussions with them on whether that was applicable under the circumstances. But after discussing it, they were amenable to submitting for a waiver of land development instead of just an exemption of land development. And what that does, it allows us to put the request in front of the board for review and then vote on whether you want to give them a waiver. Under the circumstances of this one, they're just adjusting the lot lines. They're not building anything. Pretty vanilla application. So that's why the waiver request is, we think, staff thinks, my office thinks it's appropriate for them to request the waiver, but we still want it to, as Bruce said, come in front of the board to review, make sure you're comfortable with that. And then it also, gives the board some authorization to sign that plan in a public forum instead of just going through an exemption process, which would be kind of behind the scenes. So we just felt that was more applicable. You'll see the plan and the application before you in a meeting coming up in December. That's the gist.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Okay, and you had mentioned that there's other cases that are coming up.
We will have potentially, we haven't seen anything quite formal yet, but there is another opportunity. Like I said, the land development's in another municipality that we border. We are fairly close to the border. However, conditions that we see in that area, at least preliminarily, aren't a significant change where we think it affects anything on the township side. So on that one, what we're looking to do and work with a potential applicant to make sure that they have and are moving through the approval process in that neighboring municipality, knowing that we will still have some comments potentially on where they are. We have the opportunity to comment to the other municipality that we work well with, our feedback and concerns. And that is another instance where we would potentially ask the board to consider a waiver of the land development process. So we have this one. The other one's a little bit different. We're waiting to get kind of more information, but wanted to gauge the feel of the board for taking that policy. And, we look to have an application so that we're documenting in through the community development office, that this request did come in. Also with this current one that you see before you, fill out that application, get it on the record, know that we had a process in our data set, in our database, so that in the future we can come back and look at the history of projects and knowing and being transparent to the public that they came before the public in a public setting. We logged them and then we moved forward. So yes, we will have potentially one other one. We're just not there yet.
And is the other one a PUC regulated as well?
It is not. There's potentially some commercial addition in a commercial shopping center that already exists. It's basically changing or putting in a store or a freestanding commercial business where they're already in a commercial shopping center. So it's on our end, it doesn't, we're not even going to see the stormwater right now that I think like we've seen in other neighboring developments in neighborhood, outside the township that have given us.
The standard stuff,
Stormwater.
we get the traffic and the stormwater and they
That-
get,
That's correct. That's correct. So at this point, at least in initial discussions, we haven't seen any of those things, which is why it's something we feel comfortable on as well. So.
okay, well, with regard to this one, I don't have.
This is just a line adjustment
That's correct.
Right.
between the two utilities that was mentioned.
Yeah, Mike, I think Commissioner Higgins is on Zoom, so he won't hear you.
So yeah, what had happened was, the way it was explained to me, Frank Diamore, by the way, was that Med Ed and PPL have sort of just been placing stuff on each other's lots, sort of wherever it fit. They found out, hey, we should probably actually demarcate where our lot line is. So this is just conforming to.
And for us, just so the board's aware, what we're gonna do if it's all right, and it seems like it is, we'll have that prepared, probably for the next meeting, as staff and, Mark work through with the, applicant, the individuals to try to have everything prepped. The board would then have to take action on that, as I said, a formal action. So granting or, disapproving of a waiver, denying or approving a waiver.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. Okay, Bruce, number 5.
All right, just our normal end of year housekeeping and cleaning business here with the adoption of the budget. One of the pieces of that is the annual homestead exemption. For the year 2025, we see 119,950. Last year, or 2024 current, we're 119,550. So we've seen a slight increase in that. As everyone's aware or may not be aware, that is the 50% of the average assessed value by law that we're allowed to assess as a homestead rate. So that first 119,950 is, exempt from paying property tax. So this is just a housekeeping item to let you know. We'll be looking for the board to consider this at the December 19th meeting. So
Question?
It pretty much didn't change then.
about $400. So you figure that's gone up. Total assessed value is up, what, like $800 then? So.
Thank you. Sewer tapping.
This is another item. As usual, we've been bringing these before the board on a fairly regular basis each year or every other year. Engineering does perform a various review and paperwork and studies associated with tapping fees that the township charges for the various sewer districts. It's necessary that we have the board consider this update to the fees as we lay it out for those districts. And we would be looking in the December 19th meeting to make sure that we have that enacted. So just basic like we do all the time, not for the actual sewer rate per se for usage, but for that allocation fee. So unless there's any questions. Good.
Anybody? Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll take the next one as well. Mark can help me through this part and Vince if needed. The township does have an ordinance for the regulation of business operations for those establishments licensed by the Liquor Control Board. We have, there's a process for this ordinance that we're able to have local enforcement per the times and the items designated in the township ordinance. I think it was in 2020, 02 was the ordinance number. What the township needs to do is have the board consider a resolution allowing us to go to the LCB or LCE to give us the authority to do that. Our last one, and I missed it, expired on October 7th of this year. We do have it in a calendar, reminder calendar, but what we need to do is if the board would like to proceed, get this on the next agenda The solicitor's office can then complete their petition and paperwork as necessary to get in front of the Liquor Control Board and have a hearing once again for our enforcement. The first one we did was a year. The second one lasted for 3 years. And I don't know if this one then goes to 5 or we have to have a lesser time since we missed that part of it. So this is the process. Wanted to make sure the board was good with that. We want to get it in front of you as soon as we can for your consideration so that we can start the rest of the process.
Yeah, I'm fine with proceeding. Anybody else? Sounds good, Bruce. Thank you.
Item 8, fee schedule amendments, of course, for the end of the year too, going into the next phase. You'll see the various fees for township services, including things like recreation programming, building inspections, all things, applications for land development, things of those nature that have a fee. The township has to keep and maintain an updated fee list. A lot of the fees are staying the same. You will see they've been marked and highlighted from as much as road occupancy permits for those people digging the street or running things in the right of way, an increase in those applications, recreation programming, and then I would call out on the recreation side too for our membership fees for being at the community center and using it. We started that fee several years ago at $10. A slight rate adjustment to 15 for residents, 20 for non-residents, and then some additional items that they're trying to do, including pickleball, birthday party type things for rentals in the party room and that side of the courts. So, just a general update of fees to make sure we're charging the right thing. I know if you have any questions, Vince has his building fees laid out for everybody and what he'd be looking for on that end if there's questions.
One question. Why is the pavilion at West Coastville Park the usage fee being deleted? It's lumped in with the rec hall.
I'll check. I think really what we had looked for on that side was to make sure that, and in times, and I could be wrong here, but I'll confirm, the pavilion and building, so they weren't in conflict with each other because of the limited parking there. So I believe now that West Coastville is kind of, other plans for that facility. We're not looking to charge a fee for that pavilion. Other pavilions in the township, it's first come, first serve, and you can go over and use them. So I don't believe we're looking for a rental fee there, but I can always confirm with recreation. If that makes sense.
So the other pavilions we do not charge for.
Correct. We had charged at Camp Olympic, those larger ones down by the stream. However, because of stream flooding, there would be times where they would be rented and then we would have to go clean real quickly because there would be mud and debris. So we don't actually rent those ones, but those were pavilions that actually had a cost associated. But if you would go to say Wild Cherry, go to one of those pavilions and take that one for the day, there's not a fee on that. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Hills of Lockridge Pavilion might have a fee for it with the building, with the community center rental. So.
Anything else? Anybody else? Thank you, Bruce. Sewer bids.
All right, I'll just keep rolling and Brian can jump in if I miss anything on here. The township for our 2025 projects did work to aggressively go out to bid so that we were ready to hit the ground running with the next 3 items you'll see here. So part of our project was finishing that clay pipe lining that exists. So we were out to bid for 23,285 feet of lining of those facilities. So we're hopeful that will be now finished. So that base bid of 949,920 was for the lining. We also, as we had talked about during budget time, we need to start the close to 4,000. Continue the close to 4,000 lateral transitions between the street and the right of way line. We've done about 200 so far here and there. We haven't done any dig and replaces in probably the last, I think, 2 years. So we have another part of the bid that we looked at to do some hydraulic excavation around the connection point, and then install Ts, and then line those 31 laterals from residential connection point to the street. So that is a $263,500 cost for that part of the bid. Our total's $1,213,420. We have in our budget for the board's consideration, $1,240,000. So we have just about 26,000 for total project management in there. I'm hopeful with our inspector, Matt. He understands where we need to be in managing that project. I would caution the board, if we have any change orders or things that we find, or we have to add some additional, we are right at our budgeted amount, but we're going to recommend that we move forward with the project. However, the board can consider to do either one of those and approve those, but we think the total package is the way to go. So,
Any questions?
yeah, I get it.
One, so we're gonna line from the main, our part of the lateral to the customer.
Yeah, correct. So there's two ways that we can go into the transition. One, well, actually 3 ways now, because I'm going to learn about this new way that we're going to see this year. The first way is a full dig and replace from the main line in the street to just behind the right-of-way line where the connection point for the resident goes. So usually behind the sidewalk, right outside that right-of-way line. As I understand it, what you have in that section is probably a clay pipe. Well, we've identified, but for the public, there's clay pipe in that section. The joints and the gaps for the clay pipe is where you have your inflow into the system. At the transition point from the township's, I would say, lead line there to your connection point. Usually for, those not familiar, there's a bell for bell end of the pipe, the residential part connection to the bell end of the pipe. That is another area of potential leakage. So what happens is you can dig the lateral from the middle of the street or where the sewer line is located to that connection point, and you get an entirely brand new line. It's sometimes a little more invasive behind sidewalks, curbs, and then the street. So you have that way you can do it. You have what we did 2 years ago or 3 years ago, where they actually excavate behind the curb line, install a new T, which is a clean out sweep in there, and then they pull a liner from that clean out sweep back towards the township main, and then they cure and place it like the regular main. Now there's a third method that, well, actually there's 2 more. The third method is what we're looking at now. They're going to use a machine to actually push water, hydraulically excavate, bring up that ground mud slurry, go down in there, install one of these vaca T products around that connection point. So you have the T, pull the liner through. So that's the third way. The fourth thing that you can do to address these laterals is you can use a grout product through there. So we did that as well. I want to say last year we did a project with the authority. So they actually go in, they inflate the lateral, they push grout into the outside edges. Now, the thing with the grout is sometimes it's significantly cheaper and around $2,000 to $2,500 a lateral. However, the life expectancy is a 15 to 20-year product where you're using some of these cure in place liners and transition where you're 50 to 75 years because they're hard plastic now. So what we're looking to do is engage those components, correct, from the street to the residential. If that makes sense. And then as we go through, I think it's important for the residents to note, your lateral that you're responsible for from that connection point to the house. We have a program to look at those or require the resident when they transfer their house to video review those. So eliminating or addressing those items in that section is also beneficial for our system as a whole. Now, the DEP would tell you, I believe, that you get more credit and I guess flow realization by addressing these tap connection points, as they may be the section where that is the most, who knows what they did in the 50s, 60s, 70s. You know, some may have newspaper in that connection point, which was the gasket. Some gaskets in that clay pipe are just old. And then you have root intrusion, which grows in there and separates the pipe. So sorry, I didn't mean to get like too far off on a tangent, but I think it's interesting on that side, how we're trying to approach this at least.
I got one more question.
Mhm.
The item before this and this one, what guarantee do they offer? Secured in place lining, main lines, what you just explained now, is there a guarantee with that?
Yeah, so I have to defer to Brian, or we have to actually go we have to ask the contractor. Of course, we have a bonding component and a maintenance period where we at least get that year component after they do the work, they televise it, the engineer reviews the video to make sure that that's seated properly in there. But I don't know what the warranty is if that liner washes forward or you have an issue with it. That's something I would have to ask them.
The reason I bring this up is they've been around the township now, giving estimates. And I mentioned to the one man because he needed help. I asked him what the guarantee was. He says, secured in place on the main lines will never fail. I told him, well, my manager, myself, we seen one fail in less than a dozen years.
Yeah, we did see one.
Collapse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he believed it, but
Yeah,
you and I seen it.
it does
We
happen.
seen it,
It does happen.
and that's why I asked, what's the guarantee?
Yeah. And I can ask them where it is on, like the liner, you know, they say a lifespan, but the actual install component of that. And, you know, we did have a contractor several years ago that, in this process of excavating tees, actually jammed like, I think it was 2 liners. They had to actually go in and replace the entire lateral, because as they were pulling, you know, and sometimes you have these 4-inch to 6-inch connection points from the lateral to the township point, and getting that liner in there, it's significantly troublesome at times. So we actually, you're right, even on an install, we had to have them come out and they had to totally lay 2 laterals. So it does happen.
Yeah, we
It'd
can,
be good to have a guarantee.
I can find out what kind of guarantee we're gonna get on this particular work. And then in general, see what the lifespan, you know, is expected to be. But, you know, things can come up when the install is happening. And that's kind of like with anything getting built. It could be a successful product 99 out of 100 times, you know, so let me follow up with Joe and find out exactly what the warranties are for the work itself and then the product as well. Because, you know, we're going to want some sort of guarantees from the contractor. And apologies, I don't know what exactly is laid out in the spec. But I'll find out what warranties there are for the work itself and then for the product once the warranty period is up for the work, the install work.
Thank
you. Mhm.
But I will say, I want to belabor it. I will say that we've been doing various pieces of this work since we've been your engineer, and we've had different contractors and there's been different tweaks along the way. And I'm not aware at the moment of a lot of major problems. If there were, in fairness, we would have already talked to Bruce about, hey, we may want to reconsider how we're going about this. And I think without, in fairness, without knowing the exact numbers, I think we've had fairly high success rate with the lining projects. The laterals, I think, get kind of dicey just because it's so hard to tell what was done years ago with these clay pipes. You know, and I'm not saying it as an excuse. It's just it is honestly kind of an unknown.
Well, and
Um,
we have sections, and it's not even on the engineer side where, you know, the township provides that we think we have something in the ground in that bid spec. And then here you have something different, you know, some diameters like, you know, Brian was alluding to where, you know, you think you have an 8 in the ground, you got a 10 in there, you know, even our sewer crews look and say, hey, there's 8 in the ground. And then we get a little more thorough in it. And, you know, we've had some change orders that way. But we try to provide as best information as we can to engineering, but it still happens for us, you know?
And we do, if I don't want to speak out of turn, but we do get video once they're done
Yeah.
from them, confirming that it was all done, that the laterals and the mains and whatever laterals have been done are done correctly. You know, you visually see that they're going to flow. And again, something could happen shortly after, and we would address it, but I'll find out some specifics about the liners and the warranties, whatnot.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, we actually, just because I find some of these things fascinating and outside of my scope that I've seen, we field tripped the staff, doing some of our last lining, components, at a local neighborhood, and I had never seen when they do a reinstatement, they were actually gonna, grout the first 2 joints. So Renee, Vince, took a couple other people out, and we watched the video as they, um, you know, reinstated the lateral, did the grout, what we were looking for in the grout. And the guys we had working that project were actually really good and really good with us, showing us where those components are. So I'm at least trying to learn a little more about this process, and it's fascinating how all these different technologies now out here. So.
Anything else on this? Nope. Well, good, Bruce.
All right,
Go.
we talked on the budget times too, the storm sewer, the various areas of pipe replacement that we need to do. As we talked to the board, you know, we've set those priorities for replacement of full depth and full length replacement. Worked with the Public Works Department to lay this project out along with engineering. So the bid for what we have and what we'd recommend is 676,500 from Barasso Excavation. And that will start to address our first components of this project. As we put together, like I said, with engineering and our inspector and Doug, you know, we think we have about another 11,000 feet of pipe to go video. 2,000 of that being concrete pipe that we want to get our eyes on for this first phase. But the budgeted amount was 720. So we have enough money here for project management and in case we have any change orders in there. So like I said, we're up to speed with the Public Works Department, and the director was out, looked at this project again, and we're ready to get moving. So.
Questions on water sewer? Keep it rolling, Bruce.
All right, Gun Club Road. It seems like this project has been forever, supposed to be done this year. We did go out and bid. We have our number back, 548 to 33. We're gonna recommend the board consider approving that for a 25 start. We budgeted the capital budget 575, so we have a little bit of project management in there in case we go over. So we're on task there. Probably all 3 of these bids would be looking for December 19th consideration. It may be sooner, but we have a little time yet.
Questions?
No, December 19th.
It is. It's coming. And I'll just mention as we're talking projects, because it's in my manager update and below. We are working on that roof bid for the community center. It's due back December 11th. We held a pre-bid meeting last week. I think we saw between 11 and 15 contractors that showed interest. They were on the roof. They grabbed core samples. So we should have, we'll be in a good position with that, and we'll be ready to recommend an approval or denial at the December 19th meeting.
Yeah, with that kind of turnout, hopefully we'll get just as many bids. It's no guarantee that somebody that is that a pre-bid is going to submit a bid, but certainly numerically, it's encouraging to see that many contractors.
Almost like that's a sign things are slowing.
I guess, I mean, I kind of don't read too much into it. I just feel like we get a lot of contractors showing interest, no matter what the reason. It's a good thing for the township.
No, but
Um,
sometimes we can't even get a bid.
Oh, and we've had that too. Yeah, it's kind of funny how I mean, it is somewhat predictable, but yeah, I don't know if it's because work is slowing down, certainly with the roof stuff or not, but we'll take it.
And we're,
Well,
and we're,
it
oh, sorry.
could be a good time of year because
Right.
of the winter break and so.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. It's kind of funny because we don't really care what the reasoning is as long as we can get as low a number for the township as possible. So it's kind of, we'll take it. If we in fact get a good, a good number.
You, Vince?
Yeah, he's gonna grab this one.
Yep, thank you. So before you is the municipal agreement between Key Codes and the township. It is renewed every 2 years. I think I mentioned this before in a department report, but Key Codes has increased their pricing 5%. Ever since I've been here, since 2019, there's been minor tweaks in their adjustments in their fees, but not like they had to do this year, but because of the economy and staffing. So we don't have any issue with continuing with Key Codes. I think they're a great partner for the township. And, we work very well together out in the field. Dave Shields runs a great company and has great inspectors. So.
Vince, are we a year with an additional year? Is that how the contract's laid out?
Yeah, so the contract does read that it is a 1-year agreement with an additional extension, 1-year extension.
So that could be 2 years with 5.
This 2-year agreement would hold the same unless that changes, we'd have to come back.
It's our option. So
That's correct.
we could opt to get them second year. Would be still 5%.
That's correct.
There you go, Bruce.
Wanna try for 5 years?
I could ask him. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to.
All right, 13, Mark and the solicitor's office is assisting. The sauerkraut extension is open from Spring Creek to the park now. Part of our stuff requires us approved stop sign for Quarry and New Sauerkraut, as well as the speed limit for that roadway. Solicitor's office is preparing this draft to Chapter 15 to amend the ordinance. We're kind of in a little bit of a hold. I've asked them to kind of wait for a little bit. We might have 2 other stop signs in areas of the township that we could incorporate into this ordinance, so we don't have to go back and re-advertise again. Engineering and traffic engineering is working on kind of a review of those areas, so we may have some additional, and we'll get that in front of the board. But that's why it's necessary to talk about this now. I think it's coming in December. We should have it ready for you guys to designate those signs and speed limits.
You, questions? Okay, manager updates.
All right, go ahead, Vince. Take the L and I.
All right, thank you. So just for the board's reference, as an opt-in municipality, as Lower Macungie Township is, we enforce the Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code, and every 5 years, the Department of Labor and Industry audits every municipality that is opted in to make sure they're administering the accessibility requirements and enforcing those provisions correctly. So the primary intent, as you probably saw in the letter, is to educate code officials and code administrators to ensure that recommendations have been made since the last audit. The process starts about a month before the audit. We had to get 262 commercial permits. This is for new construction that pertain to accessibility. Department of Labor and Industry narrowed that down to 5. We had to pull all those plans out for their review. The day of the audit, they picked 3. We went actually to those businesses and they compared the plans to what was in the field. So we had a couple minor comments, but again, it's for educational purposes and make sure that we're doing our job correctly.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, this is the time where Vince and his certification as the building code official, as he represents us, that is his audit of where we are. And, I think, as he said, I've never been involved with an audit from the state that doesn't make sure that they find appropriate items to have that educational component. So it's a very uh, in, intensive type pulling of these things and going with that state inspector. So, I can't say enough about how we got through the process, and we continue to manage through that. And it's something I wanted to make sure the board was aware of, because it is definitely definitely an interesting thing if you haven't been through it from the state. And like I said, Vince's licensure kind of relies on that, and it's good to know that we're compliant and acting accordingly. So super
Excellent.
important. Yeah.
Thank you, Bruce. And if I could just add, and I think that goes back to, as the building code official, I still have to oversee the inspectors and our third-party agency as well as keep it. So, I think that bodes well for them as well. But again, we do oversee that. We don't just have a contract with them and they're out doing their own thing. We oversee that pretty heavily.
Excellent.
They pretty much should get it right if the codes approves the plan. What we're talking. So I guess you're pretty much checking them that they.
Yep.
All right, 14.2, Vince, our fire inspector, Dev, as well as Mark, are looking to update our international fire code. The international fire code versions regulate how we do our inspections for our fire and life safety inspection program. So with the 3-year International Code Council cycle, we're on the 15 code actually still. We're looking to implement the 21 code for these inspections, as well as, just for everybody, like they're already in the 24 code. So, and then the 27 code will be coming out soon. So we're updating to get to 21. We think it's a good stepping stone for us. And just so there's no confusion, because sometimes there is, this doesn't regulate the building construction permitting side as far as the Uniform Construction Code. However, these items are what's relevant for that, I said, post-construction life safety element program that we have. So what they have to do is they take the newest code, they work through all of the chapters as a staff, and then they have to designate or kind of clarify items in that code so that they're relevant to the township. So like the code says, fire code official, where we define, or fire chief, and we define code enforcement official. So things of that nature, what's relevant, what isn't, sections that they may have to delete or modify. That's what they're working on at this point. I know there's a draft, working draft. There's still some, because this is so extensive, they have to get through some more chapters, but we think, and we put the time frame of maybe a December adoption, so we can hit the kind of January, New Year under that code. So interestingly enough, we do this with the property maintenance code as well. So when we find it's time to get to the next property maintenance level, that's a whole additional standalone code called IPMC, International Property Maintenance Code. So then we're going to start on that one next, get those revisions and go through the same process. So we're close, and it won't be long, but we think it's good to keep those current, the evolving technology and things that the fire and life safety inspection then may be able to look at and make sure is compliant. So we talked about the roof replacement, elevator rehab project for the building. We did have a meeting with contractors last Thursday to review a scope of work and make sure we are trying to get some kind of pricing that we may have. We've talked to the elevator company. We have a generalized kind of quote number for that, but then this is anything that has to happen in the elevator shaft, the alarm system, the pit, and those side of it. So we're still making progress. Like I said, we're 6 months probably for parts, or that spec to happen. So we're trying to push for that June, July, opportunity to get things, updated. So I will keep you posted. The next item I have, 14.5 South Cedar Brook Road, turn back from PennDOT. Just some background for the board and public, with the, I forget its official name, the Top Golf development up there, Lehigh Valley Town Center, development. A component of that project, is improvements at the existing, service road 2 and South Cedar Brook Road, uh, alignment, to the bypass, 222 bypass, and that entrance way, for the plaza. So, part of that is, the state and the applicant, are working through ownership of that stretch of road between the bypass and Route 78. Currently, it's a state road. The state has once it kind of disconnects and a state road doesn't connect a state road anymore, then the state usually doesn't maintain, these roadways, and they do what they call a turn back, to the local municipality, or you could request a turn back of a road to a municipality, and there's a process for that. So in this instance, the reconfiguration with the service road, the connection point to that private road, and the part that might be the township stub from the bypass to the private roadway, that we saw in one of the land development plans. We've been asked if we would consider, proceeding through the turnback process of South Cedar Brook, from the state to the township. The township doesn't have to do that. I think for the land development side, it would probably cease, because there would be no way to get this state ownership through there. But we've been asked to look at the process. It's non-binding at this point. So what happens, the engineer, and our team actually went out, with the developer. We walked the road. We come up with various improvements that would have to be done, on the roadway and a cost estimate for that. We look at everything from signage to drainage to paving, and try to come up with an overall scope. With that overall scope, usually that's the second part. The first part is, correspondence to PennDOT from the township that says, hey, we may be interested in, you turning this road back to a township road. So I've prepared that letter. It's non-binding. I'm going to send that over unless, just to see what they say, unless the board has any, issues with that part of it. Then PennDOT representatives meet with the township, and look at those, areas that we've noted for improvement. In this case, the developer addressing those, or sometimes in my previous life, PennDOT would, prepare those and give the municipality the money to complete those, or, they would complete the repairs, and then move that through their process. Once you accept a turnback road from PennDOT, it's like liquid fuels where you go on a turnback map and you receive, $4,000, for that section of roadway out of an allotment. So, that is their, payment to the township for you accepting that responsibility. We're interested to see what they come back with. But I think it's vital for the applicant, maybe always the township accepting a roadway, or a turn back of a roadway. We just want to be mindful that it's something that we don't get stuck with issues on. But I wanted to see and we talked about it at a previous workshop, but we're kind of gotten to the point now where, we have to submit a letter and get things at least started to look at. After that whole process goes on, the board would then have to have a formal adoption, of, I believe, a resolution, to PennDOT to actually go through the process. So we're non-binding at this point.
Okay, that unnamed road that goes down to the motel, has that already been turned over to the?
Yeah, so that is, that's Service Road too. So it actually has a name. However, we have prepared for that to be, Sawyer Lane. But that is a township, public roadway there on that side of it.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Well, I'm gonna send a letter this week, so as long as everybody's all right with that initial one. All right.
Did they name it because of the diner?
We picked that name, yeah, because of the diner. We thought it was a relevant historic name, so we're gonna bring that back to the board and we're gonna meet with the hotel as they have a Hamilton Boulevard address and we don't want to kind of surprise them and negatively impact them. So Renee's working to get a meeting with them so that people can find them. We think it'll be a little easier. So, but yeah, Sawyer was for the diner.
Tom Sawyer.
Sawyer done. Um, the ordinance for the budget has been advertised. Renee has the filings to the county, so we're going to be good to go for potential December 19th adoption. Brookside Road easement, we had talked about this just briefly. Renee, I don't know if you have that etch a sketch. No, I emailed it to you, but it's okay. Yeah, I hand drew some parts on the map just for the board, like we talked about. Behind this building for our MS4 project, we did see a private lateral that actually goes through the township property from back in the day. The original subdivision from the township that was prepared actually showed that line going into the street and down Brookside towards the connection point and over. We know that lateral is in the way of our MS4 project. It's been relocated to come out and down and across the channel below our rock riprap channel. So sorry, I sent you another one. What we're gonna have to do is legal is working with engineering to have a description of an easement for that private property to allow them access and to convey that sanitary over township property. So it is a private line. Like I said, I apologize for my hard to view etch a sketch drawing that I did. You'll notice the purple component is the right-of-way line for Brookside. This is the property line. You'll notice, or you may be aware, there's a barn over here that's a residence. The lateral was originally the subdivision plan map to come here and down to the sanitary. And that goes across and down the stream. What we've done is relocated that. When we found it was straight across this riprap channel into this part here and into a manhole. So we actually took that east and then south, this component. And what we want to do is define their entire easement for this line because there isn't one all the way across the township property to the main township line where it connects. So got some paperwork. We feel that we want to grant this easement for for this private lateral. There's no reason for us not to. It should have been defined years ago, but it wasn't. So we'll have it for you as soon as we crank out the description and the easement text. Yardway center permits, we're still working on those. Recreation actually has a permit set up in the rec software. We're ready to try it with staff and see how easy it is to get people through that. $10 we're thinking still for the administrative part. If it becomes a disaster, we might have to switch gears. We're worried about people having to go in and register and how that may be, and getting our staff trained here with like a kiosk to help people that might come to this building to work to apply. It's still our goal to get people filing for permits since they've expired. That's our priority, not to recoup additional costs or anything at this point. So we're thinking if we can get 2,000 of our 6,000 people onboarded onto the permit process at $10, we budgeted for that 20,000. And then we can try to track usage, get things, make sure people are residents, and get that moving. So we've talked about it extensively. We didn't want to impact people with costs at this point till we get it. We will hold the line as best as we can. I think in 26, we will see those, if we can get usage report, and know how many people and get that list cleaned up. So.
Good.
All right. I have two other things here that weren't on the list. Our meeting's next week for the board. So that agenda is going to be posted Monday. Staff's working and Renee is, working to have our draft up and ready, with staff. So we will be ready. It'll be up Monday for everybody. Also with the, Sauerkraut extension near 100, the township did extend, a sewer line as part of that project down behind the 6 or 7 houses that are back there. While we were in construction progress, we have to go get DEP planning module approval because that line is there and it's an extension of the line. We're in process. We've reached out as part of that. We'll have to bring our planning module back to the board for consideration. So then the DEP can formally act on that. So we'll have that for you guys as well,
Thank you.
probably by the end of the year. Oh, Vince has something for staff report.
Just working with Sanctuary at Hassville again to get another contract in place, agreement, I should say. Again, it would be the same as last year. Only cats. It's hard to find a shelter that takes dogs anymore. It's hard because from what I hear is because these shelters are all no-kill shelters and they don't have anything to do with the animal center, and that they're expense to keep them, give them the shots, and that the townships, municipalities pay a fee to have them come pick them up, but then the long-term cost for them to stay there till somebody adopts them or what they do with these animals, it adds up. So that's why the sanctuary is not taking it on, and some other places we reached out to are not
Julie
either.
can't hear you.
Do you want me to start from at 6 o'clock? Sanctuary at Hassville is only taking cats again, not dogs, because most of these places are finding it hard, since they are no-kill shelters, hard to get rid of them then, right? If people don't adopt them, you end up with, overabundance of animals. So it's
Vince, I presume that's the case across the valley, right? Or
it is, and other municipalities are having the same issue.
bizarre?
So,
I mean, I understand the point of not being able to maintain a dog for a lengthy period of time if nobody's going to adopt it, but it seems kind of odd that they just won't take them.
Well, don't Lehigh count?
Lehigh County Humane Society will take them, but they don't respond. You have to take the dog there. So that's why I don't have the Hassville agreement yet. Just trying to work things out with Lehigh County. We had spoke with them 2 years ago, and we couldn't come to agreement. Again, I think what we're trying to provide our residents is somewhere they can call and get that response.
Right.
But not many places are doing that. Now they will respond for cruelty cases. That's state, but not for just friendly dog pickup or stray dog, stray cat. Anyway, working through it.
Thank you, Vince.
Did I miss anything else from staff reports that Renee, Oh, thanks, Renee. The December workshop is December 23rd. Wanted to see if the board had some thoughts about if we're going to have a workshop 2 days before Christmas. The township building's closed the 24th and 25th. So, if you want to let us know at our next meeting or.
Do we have any idea what the agenda would potentially be?
I think it'll be
I know it's
fairly
early.
light, probably if we clean up, all the things we have at the December 19th meeting. I think it'd be fairly light.
I'd be fine with not having one in December, on December 23rd.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rest of the board feels.
I have the same feeling.
We may have some plans from the planning commission meeting. We'll see what comes forward that way, but that could be the only thing we have in there. I know the
guess-
township manager probably won't be there that day, so unless he's remote, so but we can make it happen if we need to.
Well, again, I guess we'll defer to you, Renee, whether or not, Vince, whether or not there needs to be one.
Well, okay, so there is a second. Okay, the 19th is the regular meeting,
Right.
and it's gonna go a little bit long because of having to adopt the budget and all that stuff. But, yeah, why don't we go ahead and any stuff that actually does need to be dealt with, do it at that meeting rather than the workshop.
Yeah, we can do that too. Make sure any topics that are relevant, we'll try to make sure we have ready and then that will be good to go. So.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds like a
And then if I could, I wasn't expecting it, but if we could have an executive about land acquisition, I think that would be a pertinent thing this evening on two items that we have to talk about. Commissioner Higgins, I'll give you a call if that's all right. And other than that, I'm sorry, I have nothing else unless there's questions.
You're still on mute, Brian.
Yes, that's
Julie, any questions? Okay, it is 7:23. We are adjourned. I wish everyone a very happy, healthy and safe Thanksgiving.